So let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 10. We're talking about servant leadership. Servant leadership today. This is your ability to serve is going to be in direct correlation to your level of achievement in life. And this is spiritually, this is in the business world, this is in the relationship with your wife, your future wife. All right, your ability to serve. I love how Aharon he went into the ancient language. He brought into the different attributes of a woman. And I'm going to talk about a woman that served in here too. All right, if I can make my way to that. But let's go to Mark chapter 10. And we're going to start at verse number 42. He said, "But the Messiah or Yahshua called them to him and said unto him, you know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so it shall not be among you. But whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister. And whosoever of you will be chiefest shall be servant of all." So if you want to write down some notes right here, this is the first note I want to tell you to write down. What the Messiah said, he said that whosoever among you will be chiefest shall be servant of all. So I want you to write this down. Service to many leads to greatness. Service to many leads to greatness. Some of y'all know about Jim Rohn. He took that and coined it. He coined it right here from the scriptures. All right. Service to many leads to greatness. This is not that you just want to serve people just to become great, but greatness comes as a byproduct of you serving many people. All right. So now let's look at this word for a minute. In verse number 43, he talks about, the person that's going to be, whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister. So when we look at that word minister, of course, this is in the Greek in this part of the scriptures, that word is diakonos. And this person that is a diakonos, who the Messiah talks about, let this person be your minister. A diakonos is a person who runs errands. It's an attendant and a waiter. So are you humble enough to serve in the capacity of someone that runs errands for someone else? Are you humble enough to serve in the capacity to be an attendant, just like Joshua was to Moses? He was his servant. And so a lot of people, they equate that scripture in Deuteronomy about Deuteronomy 18 about a prophet like Moses, and they say that straight to the Messiah. Well, I got so many scriptures that show that prophet like Moses was actually Joshua. That's for a whole nother topic, but we can talk about that another time. But Joshua served like Moses. He was a prophet like Moses. And for those that just has the King James Bible, you see that you don't see Joshua ben Nun mentioned in the conversation of the prophets. But if you go get the Dead Sea Scrolls, which I have right over there, the Dead Sea Scrolls, it puts Joshua in the same combination of the prophets as the book is lined up. So Joshua was a prophet, and he learned from Moses, and he got some very similarities. All right, and now we can talk about that another time. But anyway, and it could be talking about the Messiah as well. Scriptures are twofold oftentimes, but it's definitely talking about Joshua. So the servant, we have to serve. We have to get this mindset out of us that individuals have to serve us because of who we are. And this is right here. This is the Messiah speaking. He said, if you want to be great, the greatest person among you, let that person be your minister. So the very next scripture, he goes down and says, whosoever will be chiefest shall be servant of them all. And that same word for minister is the same word for servant as diakonos. And that diakonos, once again, is a person that runs errands. What if you're thinking about the person that runs errands? You're looking at that person as the flunky, right? In the hood, we call that person the flunky, right? Or he over here running errands for this person. But according to the scriptures, this person is the greatest. Not the person that's running errands, pushing drugs and all that. But a person that can be running the errands can be getting his foot in the door to learn the game. We talking about Doc over here talking about getting some skin in the game. Aharon talking about the skin in the game. Right? This person that's running the errands, he has a seat at the table. Pay attention to this though. An attendant. Diakonos isn't a person that's an attendant. You all are attendants on the line today. You've been attending this meeting over and over again. And a waiter. How many people want to be a servant? A waiter at tables. That's a humbling job right there. My job that I had was a shoe shiner. Was probably one of the humblest of the humble jobs, sitting at the feet of these wealthy entrepreneurs. Some people say I'd rather clean toilets than shine somebody's shoes. But are you willing to be a humble servant? That's the question I want to ask you. So now let's hop over here to Matthew chapter 23. My brother Aharon, he took one of my scriptures earlier in Genesis 18. He said, I'm gonna stop right here because I know I'm gonna go into some more of his scriptures, like so. But he definitely tapped at Genesis 18. Matthew chapter 23 and verse number 11. He said, but he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. This is what we do not find in the Christian church. We have the pastor sitting up front and everyone serves the pastor. But when have you seen the pastor come out and among the people and shake hands? When have you seen the pastor say, before I eat my meal, I want to make sure everyone eats first? Matter of fact, I'm going to come help serve the people. How many pastors are operating like that? How many so-called mores and teachers and leaders and priests and generals are leading like that? To say that, listen, I'm going to come out and help feed the people. I'm going to bring, how much more will it mean to the people when they see the leader of the congregation, the leader of the assembly, the leader of the business, the organization, the movement, and when they see that person stooping down and feeding people? He that is greatest among you, let that person be your servant. That's where we have to have a mindset that, listen, I have to serve. What capacity can I serve? Where can I be useful at? What does it say in the book of Psalms, chapter 184, verse 10? I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of the Most High Yah. I'd rather sit there and hold the door for you while you go in there and worship him. Just please don't let me dwell in the tents of the wicked. That's the servant right there. I'm going to hold the door. Whether I'm his people, whether I'm not his people, I'm going to hold the door for you. Let's continue. So now let's go down to Galatians chapter 5. Galatians chapter 5, we're going to smooth over here. And let's talking about this servant leadership. We have to embody this. Appreciate you, Wayne, for incorporating this in the syllabus. This is necessary of us to have the mindset that we have to serve to leadership. Galatians chapter 5 and verse number 13. It says, you know how through infirmities of the flesh, this is the wrong chapter, excuse me. For brethren, you have been called unto liberty. Only use not that liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. This is I'm not really focused on the first part of scripture. It's the second part. By love serve one another. And so that goes back to what Aharon talked about, Dr. Crowder talked about. What are your motives? Our motives should be that we're serving because we love our fellow brothers. Or what Aharon talked about, what this generation call them, I love this person that's called a YN. Now that correlates into what Jonathan was talking about too, when you're trying to figure out who you should help, how you should serve this individual. Well, guess what? It doesn't cost me nothing to have a 2-minute conversation with his brother. Or it doesn't cost me anything to shake that brother's hand and say, man, you have a good day. It doesn't cost me anything to, be able to try to speak some encouragement to this brother. It's not saying I'm giving him some money right away. It's not saying I'm about to go open up my house and let him come in right away. But what if the Most High does want me to open up my house? Being open-minded to that. So I talked about that when he talked about I grew up in the household of learning about not helping the sinner. I taught the book of Ecclesiastes, a cuss, about chapter 12, do good to the righteous, help not a sinner. There's different ways we got to look at that scripture, and that might have to lead to maybe the question and comment section of this after I'm done. But let me stay what I'm talking about here for a second. But serve, love, and serve one another. We have to have that mindset that, listen, it don't matter. That's why I like my brother. He can be going by a title. When if any of you are on this line see me walking around calling myself a fancy title, I don't do that. I call myself a brother. I'm your brother that just happens to teach, that happen to speak, that happen to travel, that happen to do these different functions. I'm just a brother. People have tried to give me titles. They try to place things on me. I'm just a brother. I'm just a servant at the end of the day. That's just all I want to be known as. And people could call me what they want to. But Galatians, so now I'm gonna go back to Genesis though. I'm gonna go back to Genesis and I want to go to something here real quickly. Now my brother went to Genesis chapter my brother went to Genesis chapter 18. All right. So let me go to this is a book right here. And I've been dealing with some of these customs over the years, but I come to find out down the road through a conversation with my brother Aharon. One day I was driving back out into town and he was asking me, what you've been reading, what you've been studying, and I kind of shared with him what I was doing, and he said, I'm looking into the culture, I'm looking into different things. All right, and he's been on his own little journey, and I've been looking at the different customs throughout the scripture, but I found a book right here. This book is called The Manners and the Customs of the Bible. So if you want to write this book down, this along with some of the stuff that you hear Daoud and Aharon talk about, all right, the customs. It's a lot of customary things that I missed out on. It's right here in this book. So this author, he took the time, and I would say that it took him years to do this, not just a few months. That's not just like read through the Bible one time. It's a lot of customary things that we missed out on. It took this author. So I'm gonna go to page 16 in this book, Manners and Customs of the Bible, and I'm going back to what my brother Aharon went on. It's crazy that he went to Genesis 18 because I was right there. I was gonna go to Genesis 19 and 18 myself, but I'm gonna go to the custom of it and feet washing. So I'm not gonna hit it exactly how he hit it. But when you go to the scriptures, and I'm gonna go back to Genesis chapter 18. So just remember this book right here. It's called Manners and Customs. It's called at the back of this book is the author calls it the gap filler. The gap filler. This book right here fills in the gaps. It fills in a whole lot of gaps of the scriptures. All right. And so Genesis chapter 18, you see about them washing the feet, but I'm gonna go down to manners and customs and talk. We're gonna talk about the custom of foot washing altogether. So it said, this was in chapter 18 and verse 4, the same exact scripture that my brother went through, and we did not talk about this at all. All right. So Genesis 18 and verse 4, it said, let a little water, I pray thee, be fetched, and wash your feet and rest yourself under this tree. Like my brother Aaron said, how many of us are exemplifying this common courtesy to our brothers and sisters? Let alone a stranger. How many of us are doing this to our brothers and sisters alone? Common courtesy. Can I get you something to drink? Can I wash your feet? Now, when we look at this, and I'm gonna talk about the meaning of this foot washing here from this book, Manners and Customs, because it goes a lot deeper than what might meet the eye. So it says, I'm gonna read it in Manners and Customs. It said, let a little water, I pray you, be fetched and wash your feet and rest yourself under the tree. Now, this is the breakdown of this. It says, where the soil is dry and dusty, and the feet shod with sandals, frequent washing of the feet becomes not only a luxury, but a necessity for comfort and health. These are the other factors that contribute to the washing of feet. This is a luxurious feeling. Imagine somebody walking in the sand and they coming from a hot journey, and you unloose their sandals and you throw some cold water on their feet or some even lukewarm water, and you begin to wash the dirt and from the follicles of their toes, and you're getting all that up. That is luxurious to that person. It comforts them. It's like us sitting in the air conditioner in the summertime. That's how it feels when somebody is washing your feet. You come from a long distance. All right, so it said it becomes not only a luxury but a necessity for comfort and for health. So this is also a health thing as well. Health and wellness is engaged into you sitting there getting your foot washed. So there are times in the scripture where an individual may have displayed the common courtesy of washing someone's feet, and there's other times where individuals wash their own feet. But pay attention, it is as much a part of hospitality under these circumstances for a host to see that his guests' feet are washed as it is to provide them with food or to furnish them a place for repose. Listen, according to the ancient customs, the ancient Oriental customs of the Eastern people, it was just as important for them to wash your feet than it was for them to feed you food. But you have individuals today, you come over their house and they don't feed you. You come over their house, they don't even ask you if you need something to eat. This is a part of servant leadership right here. All right, so that was just one thing I wanted to take from the manners and custom books right there. I want to go down to 2 Samuel chapter 11. Think about that for a second. Think about how refreshing it would be. Now, I'm not even talking about what we do sometimes in some of these ceremonial religious gatherings that we have when we do the foot washing and we start praying over people while we. It doesn't necessarily say that they prayed over them while they washed their feet or they plowed over them, if you will. It doesn't necessarily say they did that. It was a common courtesy of servant leadership. Like my brother Aaron said, Abraham, if you go back just a few chapters prior to chapter 18, he said Abraham in chapter 12 and 13, he said Abraham was very rich. And didn't say he was just rich, he said he was very rich. And this man is still ready to wash someone's feet. Before the Messiah in the physical and later on down the road came on the scene, you see Abraham, this rich man who has the status of maybe you could say even a king at this time. They called him a prince among the people in the children of Heth, the Hittites. But this man had a great status, and he humbled himself down and was willing to wash the servants of the Most High, all right, their feet. So 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we're going to go to verse number 8. All right, let me see. I hope this is what I'm looking for. So now this is what happened with David when Uriah the Hittite, his faithful servant, a servant leader, whom David was in sin. I can paraphrase this for a minute. We already know about the adultery situation that he got himself wrapped up in. Then he calls for Uriah, to come and and say, I'm gonna get you drunk, I'm gonna feed you, I'm gonna do all this stuff. What going back to what you say, Aaron, what's your motives? Why are you bringing me in here for? He's gonna feed you this food, he's gonna get you drunk, and he's gonna send you home and say, go lay with your wife. So you can go cover up my sin. And Uriah is so dedicated to the cause, so loyal to the army of Israel. He said, how can I go back home when all the other services are laying outside in their tents? And so, but guess what happened in verse number 8? David said to Uriah, go down to your house, wash your feet. And Uriah departed from the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat. So go back home and wash your feet. All right, that's just a situation of somebody else washing their own feet. I know we all supposed to wash our own feet, but David, as a humble gesture to go back and wash your feet, and I'm gonna send you back home with this food. What was your motives behind it, though? How are we projecting ourselves? Some individuals, they have discernment; they can pick up our motives right away. Others are not so easily detectable. But are we serving because we all look at the end of the day? Let's be honest. We have to control our selfishness because at the end of the day, we all have a little bit of it in us, and we all can be honest. But a servant leader is willing to put that to the side. All right, let's continue. So now let's go to 1 Samuel. I'm gonna talk about this other humble servant right here. 1 Samuel chapter 25. 1 Samuel chapter 25, and we're gonna go to verse number 39. All right. It said, now, when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed or Baruch be Yah that have pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal and have kept his servant from evil, for Yah had returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And Dawood, said and communed with Abigail to take her to him to be a wife. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us to you to take to him to wife. Pay attention to what Abigail did in verse 41. This Abigail was just the wife of a very wealthy man. So Abigail was still kind of wealthy herself. Verse number 41, and she arose and bowed herself to her face to the earth and said, behold, let thy handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my master. So now you got another situation where Abraham is this wealthy prince who they call him a prince in Genesis 14, when he's about to purchase the cave of Sarah. They call him a wealthy prince. And so he's willing to wash feet. And now you got this wealthy woman that's married to this man that owns all this land, this man that was so stingy that didn't even want to feed David and his army. Now, Dave, now this woman says, let me bow myself. She could have walked up right. She could have walked up right. She was already wealthy. She could have walked and said, okay, let me go ahead and make myself way to my master King Dawood or David. But she said, let me wash your feet. Let me humble myself before the servants, not to just David himself. She said, let me humble myself to the servants of my master, my Adon. That's interesting right there. She was willing to humble herself. Are we willing to humble ourselves when we come into great masses of wealth? Like Aharon said, when we become the six-figure man, are we willing to serve those people? I don't want to use the word give back. No, are we willing to pay it forward to someone else? Give back mean you take it for you. You gotta all these other connotations that have to deal with giving back. Are we willing to pay it forward to other people? So this woman was. So now let's go to John chapter 13. John chapter 13. Not gonna be before you too much longer. John chapter 13, though. I wanna go back to who we talked about, the Messiah. Now we say the Messiah. Of course, there were other messiahs in Scripture. Don't be taken aback by what I said. And anointed ones. If you want to look at the word, all right, we call him Mashiach, the Messiah. But there are messiahs in the Scriptures. All right. So John, I hope you're mature enough to understand that. John chapter 13 and verse number 5. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith there he was girded. So now we got the king himself. We talked about our Rome, talked about the kingship and the order, how the Most High works from the ground up. He came as a king and worked his way from the ground up, even though he was right there with the Most High. He's washing his disciples' feet. Then comes Simon Peter, a Kepha, to him saying, do you wash my feet? And he answered and said unto him, what I do you know it's not, but thou shalt know hereafter. Then Peter said unto him, thou shalt never wash my feet. But he answered him, if I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. I want to skip over here, though, to my main point. In verse number 12 to 15. So after he washed their feet and had taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, know ye what I have done unto you? Now, this is going back to what my brother said again. He started asking these questions now. Doc was asking questions. What am I doing to you? A question has to be asked. A parable has to be thrown. You call me master and Lord, or Adonai, and you say, well, for so am I. If I then, your master, wash your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. Remember, this is the lowest debasing thing that a person could do to one another is to humble yourself down and wash another man's feet. You tell me something more lowly and humble you could do than that right there. But he said in verse 15, for I have given you an example that you should do as I have done. I have given you an example. So are we going to follow that example today of servant leadership? Are we going to pay attention to what he also said? He said the servant is not greater than his master. Pay attention. They have a saying in the business world is that the student is not greater than the teacher. And so the mentors that you have that's pouring into your life, I don't matter where you find yourself at right now. Do not ever think that you're greater than your mentors. I can sit back here, Dr. Crowder. He gave my first book over there called this book right here. This book right here called Think and Grow Rich. But guess what happens if I reach the level of my life and my status and say, well, you know what? I don't need Doc no more. I'm a six-figure guy now. I made six figures multiple times. I don't need Dr. Crowder no more. The student is never greater than the teacher. And so some of you all, I want to tell you that. Wayne Shemuel pouring into me, showing me all kind of things on how to take my life to a whole nother level. And I get to a point and I feel like I'm better than Wayne now. I don't need Wayne Shemuel no more. Listen, that's prideful. That's not a servant leader right there. It's my job to serve these men as long as they're here, as long as they will allow me to serve them. And not just the elder men. My job is to serve all men Every single man that's on his live and his Zoom in some type of capacity. And so he said, as I have given you an example, this is what you are supposed to do to one another. Abraham, if you go to another ancient text, I know that Dawood reads, in one of the ancient writings, he said that Abraham had a tent outside of the city and he welcomed passengers in so he could feed them. Are you willing to serve like that? To give in your assessment? It's not my job. I know it can be when you go to the wisdom book of Ecclesiastes, we'll talk about do good and don't help the sinner. I want to talk, we can talk about that a little bit later, and let's talk about what Aharon was talking about. This comes by now. I have. This ain't just me feeding a person that's just going by the way. This is not just me feeding a ongoing passenger that just need to be refreshed and they need to get their foot washed and just sit down and relax for about 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and give this person a morsel of bread. This is different. This is a total stranger. Like my brother just said, now that I have gained a relationship with you, now that I know your motives, now that I know that you are not trying to, take advantage of the information that I'm trying to share with you, now that I know that you really don't have a love for the Most High, I don't got nothing for you. Do good to the righteous and help not a sinner. Now my help is very limited to you now because you've already showed me what manner of person you are. And so if you go back to the wisdom of Tobit to deal with that same topic, he said in Tobit chapter 1, I did alms to my brethren and to my nation. That's the order. All right. Outside, if the Most High show you something different, I'm not listening. He can tell you to help this poor person right now because it said, be not forgetful that we entertain angels unaware. Sometimes the Most High can be testing your behind too to see if you are going to help. But I'm saying as a rule of thumb, if the Most High is not sending a walking representative of one of his heavenly beings down here to try you, to prove you, all right, follow the mandate. Talk to these people, encourage them, build relationships, see what their motives are. Help them. You can help somebody right up front, even if they are sin. But once you know that they are a sinner, and somebody on the line may say we all are sinners. No, a sinner is a person that practices sin from the morning they get up to the time they go to bed. What it says right here in Ecclesiasticus, in the wisdom, it says, do number not thyself among the multitudes of sinners. Do not call yourself a sinner. Do not number yourself in that multitude. Let's continue though. I'm about to finish out with this right here. Proverbs. I got to go back to the wisdom book. Proverbs chapter 17. Proverbs chapter 17. And we're going to go to verse number 1. And we're going to work our way to 2. Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of sacrifices with strife. Number 2, it said a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causeth shame. All right, and shall have part of the inheritance among the brethren. Give me 1 second here. I want to pull something up real quick. All right, a wise servant. We're talking about servant leadership here. All right, servant leadership at its best. So now a lot of people, they want to brag and boast about a nationality or identity, a title, all these different things. And this is a symbolic point that the Most High is trying to put. So this person is different because, of course, this is not in the Greek like the New Testament. This is not a diakonos. This person is a ebed, a servant, right? But it said a person that's in bondage, a bondman or a bond servant. So this bondman, this bond servant, this ebed that is a servant or a steward over another person's possession, or a person that we can relate to as a diakonos, is a person that might be running errands for a wealthy Abraham or for a Job or for someone that has means. This person runs errands. This person might be an attendant or a waiter. He's a servant. But it says a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causes shame. This is also symbolic to when we talk about we talk about the children of Israel, for those that want to beat their chest and brag about, the Israelite thing and things of that nature. A wise son shall have rule over a son that causes shame. A wise servant. We go to Isaiah chapter 56, but it talks about these other servants that says that, am I a dry tree? It's amazing to talk about a dry morsel right here. Am I a dry tree? He says, for thus says unto the Most High says to the eunuchs and for the sons of the strangers who keep my commandments and lay holds on my Sabbath day, to them will I give a place and a name better than that of sons and daughters. A wise servant shall have rule over a son that causes shame. The sons and daughters in Isaiah 56 are the children of Israel that are shameful children of Israel. He will give other person a place in the name better than that of his own inheritance. If this other person is walking in wisdom. So let's not get this thing construed to think, oh man, I got this nationality, man, I got everything made. Like, you better be wise out here. You better practice, leadership, servant leadership, and walk in wisdom.